Chapter 15, Zana, Abbie, and Sarah. In the dark of the carriage house, Zana, Constance, and Ted gently rolled the accelerator grips, positioning their machines in front of their tunnels as if they were about to start a race. Which they were, in a way, a race against time. A line of light blue lights appeared in each tunnel, showing the way out. With a nod from Zana, they cranked their grips and took off, each down a different tunnel. Sarah and Abbie tightened their grasps on their handle straps and leaned into Constance and Zana as their machines picked up speed. A lot of speed. Before they knew it, they had popped out into the woods and onto the old railway track, which they knew was at least a few kilometers away. The sun was searing on their eyes after the dim tunnel, but their goggles darkened immediately in response to the bright light. Cool, Abbie thought. One side of the tunnels, the machines zipped along at almost the speed of electricity itself, the process of magnetic alteration, drawing on the alternating positive and negative charges of the minerals in the steel of the tracks, required almost no energy at all to move them forward, which was good because they had a long way to go. Fortunately, train transportation was almost a thing of the past, so they could expect to have a pretty clear run all the way across the country, from New Brunswick on the east coast to British Columbia on the west. And at 700 kilometers an hour, it wouldn't take long to reach the west coast, a day at the most. Crossing the Pacific Ocean, well, that would create some challenges, something Zana needed to work out before they got there. You didn't say why you were there when Kate was born, Abbie shouted, trying to be heard above the air that was rushing past their heads. There's no need to shout, Zana replied calmly. The microphone is in your mouth, not on the top of your head. Sorry. Speaking quietly was not one of Abbie's strengths. Much better. Yes, I was there, as a friend and to protect your parents. At the mention of their parents, both girls felt a pang of sadness. So much had happened in such a short time that they had almost all but forgotten about their mom and dad and where they might be. Protect our parents? Abbie asked, trying to choke back tears. Yes, they came into all of this rather by accident. They were living in Japan in a city called Matsumoto. Do you know where that is from here? Mom and Dad showed us on the globe. It's almost directly on the opposite side of the world from where we live now. That is right. Your parents are both teaching English there. Matsumoto is a beautiful castle city in the Japanese Alps. Its history goes back over 1,000 years. Did your parents tell you that Matsumoto has a nickname? No, what? They call it the belly button of Japan. Both girls giggled. Zayden couldn't help but chuckle as well. Their giggles were contagious. Seriously, that is what they call it, because it sits in the middle of the country, like a belly button. The distraction was working. The Black Castle sits right in the city center. It is quite something. You can see snow-capped mountains from one side and tree-topped mountains from the other. There are many temples throughout the city and up and down the mountainside. It was at one of those temples that I first met your mom and dad. You did? Both girls chimed in. Yes. And I'll tell you what, she said hurriedly to avoid the girls thinking of their parents and asking more questions. I will tell you a story. It might make things clearer and it will help pass the time. The girls settled in, ready to listen. You see, in the Shinto religion of early Japan, they believed there were different gods, or kami, for everything. A god for water, fire, trees, fish, many things. There was also a god of the earth. The girls were listening intently, not noticing how fast the landscape was passing by them. Remember how I told you that a long time ago people thought that the nomis who came to the surface were gods? The girls nodded. Well, that is what happened here. One of those first portals that the nomis built led up to the grounds of a small temple in the mountains surrounding Matsumoto. When some of our ancestors appeared out of that portal, the priest of that temple thought they were gods. The priest was honored by the opportunity to learn from them, but many of the local villagers became frightened to the point that they wanted to burn the temple down. Sienna heard both girls gasp at the thought. The parents had shown them photos of that beautiful temple. It would have been a crime to have burnt it down. Did they do it? Abbie asked. Thankfully, no. Thankfully, no. When the nomis learned about the villagers' plan to destroy the temple, they told the priests who they really were and why they had come, and that it was time for them to leave. The priest was upset because he had learned so much from them about how to use plants for medicine and other things, but he knew the villagers would not listen. In the end, he agreed that the nomis should leave. Zana paused to let the story sink in. The girls watched the scenery whip past them as they thought about what Zana had told them, their minds filled with the colors and the sounds of Zana's story, just like when their dad would tell them stories at bedtime as they'd fall asleep. "Where are we?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. "We are in Quebec now." Zana nodded towards the left. "That is the St. Lawrence River over there." Abbie perked up. She had just finished learning about the St. Lawrence in class, how its deep waters had played such an important role in the history of Canada. It was the water highway that carried First Nations people, then explorers from Europe, then armies, and finally endless streams of merchant ships from its mouth at the Atlantic Ocean to the far reaches of the Great Lakes in the middle of the country. It was a beautiful sight with the narrow fields running in long strips up from the river, full of lush green and yellow crops. Across the river, they could see the dark Laurentian mountains stretching tall and wide as if they were trying to keep the water contained. Enough time had passed for the first part of the story to sink in. Now they wanted to know more. "So, what happened?" Abbie asked. Zana cleared her throat. "The nomis and the priests decided to cover up the portal in case the villagers returned to the temple and wanted to try and pursue the nomis, because at that time they had not perfected magnetic alteration?" Yes, exactly. The girls were quick to pick things up. They built a number of stone pagodas, like little stone temples with lanterns on the top, not much taller than you, and placed them around the grounds to confuse the villagers in case any of them wanted to look for the entrance to our world. The priest told the villagers that the gods had left because they were not pleased with the way the villagers were behaving. "Did it work?" The small voice was Sarah's. Some of the villagers accepted this and left. Others took their torches and looked around the temple, confused by the number of new stone pagodas dotting the grounds. The priest quietly looked on until the last of those doubting villagers left, and they did not bother him again. "That's it?" "No. Before the nomis left, they asked the priest if he wanted to come with them." "What? Did he go?" "He was tempted, but in the end, he felt he needed to stay. The anger and distrust that the villagers displayed towards what they did not understand filled him with a sadness. He decided to dedicate the rest of his life to helping his people be more accepting of change and of other people." The girls thought they had blacked out for a moment as everything went completely dark, but they had just zipped through a tunnel. "So the priest never saw the nomis again?" "Sadly, he did not. The priest could see that the people on the surface could benefit greatly from the knowledge of our world if they could only get past their fear of the unknown. So he promised to watch over the portal if the nomis promised to come back and help when the time was right, no matter how long that might take." There was silence for a bit as more landscape zipped by in a blur. Constance could feel Sarah's head resting against her back and guessed that she was fast asleep. No wonder. It has been a long day. Abbie was still awake, though. "So, what does this have to do with our parents?" "I'm getting there," Zana replied.